You're listening to Biz-Souls, the business podcast with an edge, hosted by me, Rona and Jeffrey Hansler. Tune in for perspectives and discoveries about the changing world of business. It's time to connect to the heart, soul, and humor of how business gets done. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Biz-Souls. I'm Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler.
Okay, where's the line?
Oh, I'm sorry. And we get to the heart and soul of business and the people that make it happen. Right now, we're making it happen.
There's one frickin' thing to do.
And I can't do it. I know. So anyway, what are we talking about, Rona, today?
We're having a continuous conversation on creativity. We did a podcast on creativity, I think, last year.
Right. And then we just talked to Julie Trell.
We just talked to Julie Trell, and this is a continuing conversation on that. If you listen to the last podcast, it was about how we mentioned Ken Robinson and how kids get creativity sucked out of them from education and school. So we want to continue the conversation about creativity as it pertains to the workplace. So now these kids are grown up.
Right.
And we kind of have to retrain people to appreciate how to be creative and get those innovative ideas that really move society forward. And it's a slow process. You know, it's people really think about that from the tech aspects and things like that, or artistic means, but the rest of it just seems to fall flat.
Well, and my thing is, going back to Ken Robinson's video on YouTube, on TED Talk. He was saying that the system is designed, it's killing the creativity. Mm-hmm. It's all based on testing, and it's based on getting ahead, going to the next step. It's all standardization. If you don't fit the mold, then you may have gotten shut down. And once he was going on to once it's killed, you start putting that away. People just don't try anymore. They just shut that door. Yeah. And we're hurting in business for it. I mean, CEOs are still asking for innovation. They're not getting innovation. And the reason they're not getting innovation is first of all, they don't know how to do it.
Well, and they themselves are products of what we were just talking about.
Exactly. They need to get a result. They need to pay the dividends. They need to hit the mark for the profitability. And so they're not willing to do the risk. And that's why I've got that, Elon Musk and his risk taking is and unfortunately people are getting angry at him, and they're getting angry at the way he's doing business. And so
they're getting angry at what he's saying also.
Everybody's kind of jumping at that mob scene they're jumping on. The idea is from a creativity innovation side. He's willing to take a risk. He's willing to make mistakes. He's willing to lead by making mistakes and show how to do it different.
Right. And that's it. It takes a lot of courage and fearlessness to be creative, because you're going to fail. In improv, we feature failure.
Right.
And it's, that's where the gold is. And that one nugget of failure in business can be gold for something else. It may lead you, it's the happy accidents, the Bob Ross happy accidents, that all of a sudden you have a great tree,
right.
When you were making a boat,
Right.
So it's these happy discoveries. It's like, what did Mike Nesmith's mother discover?
I have no idea what you're
Post-its? Yeah, Post-it. Something like that.
That was at 3M.
3M. Yeah,
they were looking for a glue.
It wasn't Mike Nesmith's mother, but it was. She did discover something. I don't remember. If you're too young, Mike Nesmith was one of the monkeys. Okay, so I'm not digressing. It was a fact. Anyway.
Yeah,
so,
and Mike Nesmith really knew how to play the guitar.
He did.
Yeah, everybody said it was a rumor that he didn't know how to play.
He knew it.
He was just air guitaring it.
Yeah. So anyway, well, there we digress. But so yeah, it's when these accidents happen and you let them happen, and you kind of see, what can be done with it. That's when genius happens.
Right. So I think there are a couple things. 2024 should be the year. I'm announcing it as a year of creative solutions and innovation. So
okay.
And we got to figure out a rhyme for that. 2024, innovation. Anyway, something like that. Anyway, oh wow, that's an assumption. People think you're going to be poor doing innovative. No, look, this is an article. It's from the Wall Street Journal, and it's how the best AI imitates children. And it's talking about the settings on AI and how it makes choices. And they're finding that's the way children learn. They have a wide setting. They're willing to try all kinds of things. And as they find out what works and doesn't work, they kind of narrow it down. And that's how we learn. So AI, this learning, if we can understand that process and separate it from the creativity process, which doesn't shut down experimentation, have moments for experimentation, that would be great. And then also this other article was written by Cheryl Linsell Roberts, and it's called Storyopia for Presentations that Rock. And in it, we're talking about storytelling, and she's talking about all the different things it does and the creativity for it. And storytelling has to be a creative process. So again, we've got AI and we've got storytelling, both of which are very accepted and getting a lot of attention in the business world.
Sure.
And these are both creative processes. Right. And so now is the time to strike when the metal is hot, or strike when the iron is hot.
Iron is metal, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
It's the same thing. And I equate it with cooking because, as I've mentioned numerous times, going to cooking school and following the French method, which if you're watching Julia right now, like I am on HBO, there is a method to it. And I find like my nephew, Brian, who we're going to have on the podcast, just opened up a restaurant, and he's been interested in cooking for years. He's better than I am. And as you know, I'm really good. He's fantastic because I think he didn't have the constraints of this is the way that the French cooking has been done for years. And these are the 5 mother sauces and this and this. He just makes stuff up. And it's great.
Well, and a lot of that's going on the internet. A lot of that's going on. People are trying, the best steak recipe, all the different ways you can cook steak and then let it rest and let it go. Not that I can have steak anymore.
certain things, there are processes that, yes, if you're going to cook steak, you want it to, you want to touch your palm of your hand, so you know how rare or well done it is, and you have to let meat rest. Those are just facts. And the marinades, you can do all kinds of things as opposed to just, we're using this sauce and this sauce and this.
We're using salt and butter, pepper, and butter,
right?
Which is the basic.
So just look, here's a heart attack waiting to happen. So And my point is that cooking is creative. And that's, where if you don't know the exact method, you can, summon lots. I call them summon lots cook. Put in some of this, lots of that. And what did you do? I don't know. I can never make this again, but it's, so what?
So this is, as this applies to business, when you start cooking, you're going to make mistakes. You burn stuff. Right. If I'm going to have dinner guests over, I generally will practice, either a week before or a couple days before with the exact same meal, just to make sure I've got all the little pieces together for it. And because you make mistakes. Right. And so that's what we have to allow. So for 2024, even though budgets are, some of the budgets still aren't quite finalized, I think CEOs should apply a mistake portion to the budget, like 10 or 15% extra to each budget that they can, to allow people to make mistakes.
A boo-boo budget.
A boo-boo budget.
A boo-boo budget.
I like that. Very good. Very creative. That was great. And
I should do this for a living.
You probably should. That's a good article too. You should probably write an article.
A boo-boo budget. Yeah, Forbes will love that. So
I'm thinking they will.
All right.
We'll have to get that. We'll see if we can get that done and out and into Forbes before this podcast releases.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Okay, you hold your breath.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
and the idea is to encourage people, and I think that's, they talk about CEOing or leadership by walking around. That's still very popular. I talk to my people. You shouldn't just talk to them. You should encourage them. What mistakes are you making? Mm-hmm. What have you done differently? What have you tried? What's an area that we need dramatic change in, and what have you tried for that? And what is your process for it? And who are the people you've gathered for it? And what's the team?
See, I would even make the questions bigger. What do you want to do? It's like you always say, what's your target?
Right.
And how's that working for you? And what's working, what isn't, and let's look at it from a different viewpoint. Let's look at it upside down. Let's look at it sideways. How else might we do this?
Okay, so the thing is, though, the reason I wanted to be a little more specific on it is because people have, like, somebody who's in charge of the call center. If you go into what do you want to do, are they going to, maybe that's a big question. Maybe that might be too big a question. I'm thinking, what in your call center is costing you money? Where are the problems? So then we relate it directly to something that's going on.
If you ran the call center, how would you do it?
Okay. Well, technically, hopefully the person you are talking to is running the call center.
No, my
just
point
not
is,
as their own company.
If the president or whatever, if the walking around person stopped and talked to his people and said, if you were running it, how would you do it?
Right. I just catching your words on it. They are running it. That's why they're the director of the call center, or they're the VP of the call center.
Okay.
They are running it. So I
was going deeper to the actual people who were calling.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Very good.
All
so context.
Down.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're going to ask them.
Yeah.
Well, I think
because a lot of times the 1%, the C-level has no idea what the people on the bottom, what the great unwashed masses are doing. And there was a show that had like the CEOs in disguise or whatever, and most of them had no idea what was going on at that level. I
Secrecy,
can't remember. Yeah, whatever.
Undercover boss.
Yes,
undercover
boss, and they were gobsmacked.
Right.
At how little people were making, the hours that they were putting in. And I'm like, well, this is a bad thing. This is not a good thing.
Right.
You need to know. And sometimes they get protected.
Right.
Yes, many of them have bigger fish to fry. And at the same time, how do you know that you are being the most efficient as possible? How do you know your employees are the most engaged, are happy, are satisfied?
So that's, and okay, so excellent point. And I'm still going over your last thought. And I'm thinking I'd change the conversation. So the CEO of the company, president of the company, comes down, is talking to, say, an executive is heading up a department like a call center. And what they need to say to him is not, what are the areas? What are you trying to do? How are you solving the problems? Who have you gotten involved in it? Because that's, again, giving them a directive to solve the problem. And that's part of the problem, because these guys are myopic, gals, are myopic because they've been in charge. So, and what you're saying is the people that are literally on the floor doing the calls and stuff, they're a better source for creative ideas.
I agree.
And so then the conversation the president CEO has to have with the executive is, have you got two teams set up, each working on a different problem, that are going to come to you and tell you the suggestions, the recommendations they have for changing the call center for solving these problems?
Yeah, I mean, I would have three, depending on how big the company is, I would have them separate and then just see what they come up with.
Right.
Don't give them don't constrain it too much.
Right.
Some constraints are good. And we actually talked about that with Julie. In this case, if you give them too much constraints, it's going to end up to be groupthink. And that's exactly what you don't want.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. And
that's where the creativity comes in.
Right. Now, we've talked about this before. You're not a big fan of competition. I'm a bigger fan of competition. I like the idea of competition.
I was a competitive athlete.
No, I meant in play. You were worried about the consequence of competition in play.
Yes and no. It depends on what it is. I mean, when I was in sales, my dog is asleep and dreaming and hitting the wall. So that's what you hear in the background.
They actually didn't hear it. It's just until you mentioned it. Yeah.
Sorry, folks. Anyway, there was a fun competition when I was in sales.
Right.
And at the same time, you have to be careful with competition because you don't want people feeling bad about themselves, which will get them to shut down.
Right, and it's tough to run a competition that way where it's fun. It's like I'm a director on this company, and the executives constantly have $1 bets with them of what the market's going to do. So I before the new year, it was after Christmas, so I was betting the stock, the Dow would go up every day except Friday, the final day, and it would go down on that day. So I won $1.
That was. You got to tighten up that story, buddy.
No. It was just, it is a simple bet. The bet doesn't matter. It's inconsequential. The idea, though, is having a bet was you tie into it, and then somebody has to go, okay, you were right on that one.
Well, that's a different kind of competition. That's not competition like I'm gonna sell more than you are. There's not as much pressure.
I meant a creative
making numbers.
Well, I am a creativity competition. I think you should have, and that's what I was thinking about. If you're gonna like a call center, if you're gonna have a creative competition.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what Ben and Jerry does things like that with ice cream flavors, and so there's you can do it with all kinds of things.
The dog is going a little nuts. It's like really dreaming.
He's evidently running in a field of flowers or something.
He's like running his little paws on the door. The door is
He's a big dog. He's 50 pounds. So.
Or maybe it's a competition. He's very excited. He's an athletic dog. Who knows?
He's really not. And he's 12, so it's, where's my cane?
What would you recommend to get this started? So we've got, obviously the idea of putting in a budget and having an announcement about it. That would be a big thing. They would have to announce.
It has to come from the top down, and they have to believe in it. They have to say, okay, we are giving, it's the 80-20 rule. I can't remember, either Google or Yahoo has the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the time you have to work on what you're supposed to work on. 20%, was it Google? 20% of the time go play something that you think might work. And then if it does, we'll incorporate it, and which kind of a win-win. Google gets ownership of it, and the person gets money and whatever. And that's the sort of thing I think more companies need to do. Try something and, see if it works. We'll give you X amount of budget to do it, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's an excellent
That's
idea.
why I said it. All right. Any last comments?
No, I'd love to hear what everybody else is doing. I wonder if we can get this year of creativity going. We probably should have started in October. Well, better late than well,
because by the time this comes out, it'll be August. No, it won't. It'll be end of January. Beginning of February.
Yeah, it'll be the end of January, beginning of
February.
All right,
we'll have a whole 11 months, people. Get your thinking caps on.
Well, there are all these companies that don't have year end. They have year end coming up.
That's true.
There are a lot of companies on a fiscal year. So
all righty then.
We can get them done.
Whatever.
Anyway, nice, short, quick creativity. What are you doing for creativity?
Besides coloring and cooking, and what else am I doing? I don't know. I just moved. I'm creating wall groups because my apartment has to have stuff on the walls.
There you go.
So I'm decorating. I've been in my apartment for all of a week.
Yeah, there you go.
So it still kind of looks like it exploded. So I'm working on it.
Yeah, creativity. I'm playing with cooking. I'm also working on different outlines, putting together different outlines and different topics, and also the podcast, playing around with the editing and stuff. So
notice how he goes directly to work. That's subtle.
I like work. Work is my fun zone. Work is my fun zone. Okay. It's your fun zone, right? Yeah.
Well, it's because it's play, and yes.
Right. Exactly.
I at the same time, I like to get away from it because it gives me a chance to think. So when I'm cooking, it's like coming up with ideas in the shower. Cooking is my shower.
Right.
I don't shower. I just cook. So if you see me in person, I'm just spattered with oil and flour. All right. Anyway. All right. That's it for us. I'm Rona Lewis.
And that's why we love Rona. And I'm Jeffrey Hansler.
And this has been, it still is, Biz-Souls. We'll see you later.
No, we still exist in all countries yet. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Biz-Souls podcast with your hosts, Rona Lewis and Jeffrey Hansler. Did you have fun? Subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Talk to you next week.